How can people cheat, not tell their partner, and still live with themselves? This didn't happen to me, but just by reading a few posts on here of people who have had their so cheat on them and their so never planned to tell them, how can they live with themselves if they do that? I can't imagine that they could just move on after cheating and lying. You'd be amazed what people can easily compartmentalize when they really want to. And cognitive dissonance. On the one hand, I am a good person deserving of happiness, on the other I cheated. People are really good at holding both in their head at the same time. Think you also can't underestimate toxic relationships and also socialization around relationships. People are really afraid of being alone and will cling to relationships that don't make them happy because they like the alternative even less. Essentially, there are lots of aspects to human psychology that unfortunately make this pretty easy to do actually. I had a girl tell me her roommate came up with an elaborate scheme to get some guy to fuck her, instead of just admitting she cheated. Ain't that fucked? They either think it was a one-time mistake and think they can make up for it by just being faithful and a good partner going forward, or they don't think what they did was that bad. Second, this narcissist can and will justify anything to themselves. Many people are much more selfish than you think. My boyfriend told me at the start of our relationship he has lots of girlfriends he hangs out with and I just have to accept it. But he doesn't. He just has one certain girl, he lies about meeting up with her, and he's never let us meet. Please advise. Too long didn't read. I'm worried my F35 boyfriend, M51, has been having an emotional affair the whole time we've been dating, but he gaslit me when I finally confronted him about it. This is my first time posting, but I often read the mostly fantastic, compassionate and kind advice that gets given out on this forum, and now I come here in need. My BF has made no effort at all to explain himself, or reassure me, or make me feel secure in this relationship since the last time we spoke. I have no idea if I'm overreacting or am being reasonable. I really need some advice, please. My BF and I met online just over a year and a half ago, and our relationship has been really good. I live 2 hours from him, but I drive to stay most weekends. I have 2 girls, 8 and 10, and they adore him, as do I. We also stay with him in the school holidays, and go away on trips etc. Other than the odd petty argument, there have been 0 road bumps along the way to a hopeful sunny future. Until now. On our second date he told me he had lots of female friends that he likes to spend time with. He said it with a slight edge to his voice and I was quite taken aback. I put it down to him perhaps having difficulties with an ex-girlfriend and his friends perhaps. It didn't bother me. He seemed like an extrovert and a friendly guy. So what if he has lots of friends of both sexes? I figured I might even pick up some cool girlfriends along the way, you know? As time rolled by, the lots of female friends never materialized, and I often thought back to that comment and wondered why he had said it. His 2 closest friends are men. He has friends who are couples around the same age as him, married with kids, and I could only assume those were the female friends he meant. About 4 or 5 months in he mentioned a woman, Alini, fake name. He said they met up regularly, although he was very vague about how they had initially met. I've noticed she doesn't seem to be linked in with any of his friendship circles, but rather a standalone friend. He's around the same age as me, when most of his other friends are much older. I thought it was odd he hadn't mentioned her up to this point but wasn't concerned. The first time I felt uncomfortable was when he told me what they did when they hung out every 6 weeks or so. They would go for a coffee in the afternoon, then do an activity, cinema etc., and then have an evening meal. Now that's the exact pattern him and I did when we were dating. To me, that's the perfect date. It also struck me that they were never meeting up as part of a group, as friends tend to. I jokingly said, anyone watching would have assumed you guys were on a date. And he replied, seriously, yes I guess they would. I then asked him if he was sure she didn't think they were going on dates, to which he replied, I'm not sure. That floored me. I pointed out to him that he could be leading her on, as well as everyone else invested in this ongoing relationship of theirs, like her mother and friends etc. He told me he hadn't thought about it like that and he saw my point. At the time I believed this was genuine, but I now realize he was most likely being disingenuous. We didn't discuss it again. I assumed they had stopped seeing each other, as he never mentioned her, after he realized these meetups could be considered dates by her. I'd assumed they talked about it maybe, I didn't pry. I went on to meet many of his friends and all of his family over the next year despite many living in different cities and even countries, but, oddly enough, despite Alini living in the same city as him, the city I visit 3 out of 4 weekends, I never met her. There were a few small things that perhaps in hindsight were red flags. He took ages to accept my Facebook request, and even longer to accept the relationship request. When he finally did, I saw he had hidden the inner relationship with underscore status from his friends, including Alini. I once tagged him in a trip to the theater that would have shown we were on a date, that never showed up on his profile either. He has never once posted a photo of us, or anything to do with our relationship, on his social media. He has also banned me from posting any photos of him on any of my social media channels, without giving a proper reason why. Is it in case he would be tagged and the photos of us together would end up on his page for Alini to see? Another moment that unnerved me was when we were talking about people we had dated in the past, and he described a woman similar to Alini. I think he realized what he had said as he changed that subject quickly. So, is she someone he dated now? That would explain why she doesn't fit in with his other friendship groups. Let all of this slide as I honestly trusted him. Fast forward to a few days ago, when we were discussing friends within the pandemic context. I straight up asked him about her out of curiosity. She hadn't crossed my mind for over a year. He said that he hadn't been able to see her since February, and before that it was November. I told him I assumed they hadn't seen each other at all as he never mentioned it. He immediately became defensive and snapped that the reason he had lied to me about seeing her was because, I knew you would react like this. Unless he's a mind reader, and he's definitely not. He had no way of knowing how I would have reacted. I was pretty calm the first time around. But by telling himself I would have gotten upset, he essentially justified his lying, and alleviated himself of any guilt. Then he kept bringing my ex-boyfriend into the conversation. My ex cheated on me, but that was years ago and I've worked very hard at not becoming a bitter, jaded, paranoid person from it, and I believe I've managed that. If I was any of the above, I would have freaked out the first time Alini was mentioned, and been on his back whenever he has nights out with his other friends, which I've never done. Also the fact I took over a year before remembering her and bringing the subject back up shows I am not a paranoid person. But he knows that by giving me a reason, however false, as to why I might overreact, he can sit back and say I'm overreacting when I'm not. He can make it seem like I'm the one with the problem, not him. He's also deliberately flipping the topic onto me, and away from him and his actions. I had about 2 minutes of trying to tell him why I was upset before he declared, I'm ending this phone call now, as it's not helpful. Then it abruptly ended. I'm not so much upset at the meeting up with her, but rather that he has lied to me each time it's happened. We talk every evening about what we've done that day, so he would have lied to me and had an entire conversation about a fake day. Then there is the realization, and this is a real kicker, that if it hadn't been for the pandemic, they would have met up literally countless times since then, and each time he would have lied about it. Then the further realization that if they meet up so frequently, how often do they talk? Every day? Is this an emotional affair? Is he still in love with a woman he once dated, and can't let go? Am I a huge fool? If this is nothing, then why hasn't he said that to me? His silence speaks volumes. What really bothers me is when he said, I have many female friends and you're just going to have to accept that. It was such BS. Because he doesn't. He just has her. And what he really meant to say is, I have one special friend who may or may not be an ex, who I spend a lot of time with, and you're just going to have to accept that. And that means something completely different. If he'd actually said that on our date, I would never have carried on with the relationship. No woman would. But now he can say he warned me, and so that dismisses him of any guilt and responsibility over his actions. The questions I have are, 1. Why did he lie to me about seeing her? Doesn't he realize that makes it so much worse? 2. Why won't he let us meet? I've met so many of his other friends, and she literally lives in the same city. 3. Why is he so secretive on SM about our relationship? 4. Why does she think this is okay? Or does she even know I exist? 5. Are they actually dating? We haven't spoken since the phone call 4 days ago. I'd like to add that I do really love this guy, and I don't want this relationship to end unless this is an emotional affair or he has feelings for her. I want to grow old with him, and have a family with him. I want to be his life teammate and treasure our moments together. But this can't happen if he's keeping his options open with 2 women at the same time. Being secretive, and refusing to reassure me of my worries, is the exact opposite of what he should be doing. I'm heartbroken. Please help, Reddit. In the absence of an explanation or any reassurance from him, I am having to draw my own conclusions, and it's not pretty. I have this spinning around my head each night at 2 AM and I need some perspective. Any questions? Please ask. Also, thank you for reading this long post. Honestly, even if he wasn't cheating, I don't think you should be with someone that acts like this. He's untrustworthy, defensive, manipulative and secretive. I mean, not wanting anyone on his social media to even know you exist. No, just no. I'm not sure why you can't see this guy has a whole other relationship going on because you live 2 hours away and you're not there to see it. Reading your post, I would say you're the other woman, especially considering you're forbidden from posting any pictures of the 2 of you together. And you've met all of his friends and family, but not this woman. As a single mom, I'm sure you're hoping this relationship has a real future, but it doesn't. Do what you will, but his behavior would be a real deal breaker for me. Additionally, at age 51, if he doesn't already have kids, he doesn't want them. If you have to ask yourself those questions, what's the point of being with him? You do not feel secure on this relationship. I can see why, and he is not trying to make you feel better. He has blocked the relationship status from her, which tells me he is cheating or leading her on. I would take his lack of explanation as a red flag, and followed by his actions on social media and lying about seeing her, that would be strike 2 and 3. I would just end the relationship. Thank you for your opinion, X. I'm going to be blunt, you are being a fool. You have love goggles on and are completely deceiving yourself. You are definitely being cheated on. I think you know that. I would be shocked if it was just an emotional affair. He has been seeing this woman for a year or more. Dump him and move on. He sounds like a manipulative jerk who you can't even have a reasonable discussion without him being manipulative. Read this story back to yourself and imagine one of your daughters was telling it to you. What advice would you give her? I actually think Cop is the other woman, and he's been cheating on his friend with her. Remember, he warned her about all of his female friends in the beginning, and it turns out there's only one. She was there before this relationship started. He's not behaving like someone with a friend, he's behaving like one of you is the side piece. What you love is an illusion. It would be better to cut your losses. My 26 meters girlfriend, 27F, wants to rape roleplay, and I'm really uncomfortable. As far as I know, she wasn't raped. I think I heard some survivors do that. My girlfriend said she read some rape erotica and was really turned on by it. Now she wants me to rape her. I asked her why she would want me to do that to her, and she says it's something new we can try out, and she's just really into the idea of me forcing myself on her. I've refused every time she brings it up. Look, I'm into us trying out new stuff in bed because we've done that in the past, but this is where I draw the line, and it makes me deeply uncomfortable because rape is a very sensitive sensitive topic for me. My sister was assaulted when we were in high school and she killed herself. It fucked up my entire family and we weren't the same after that. Forcing myself on anyone even as a fantasy when my sister actually lived through that trauma is a big fucking no for me. I guess it's a kink for a lot of people, but as someone who saw what that does in reality, I can't stand rape role playing. I never told my girlfriend about my sister. She knows she died but I never said how. I've never been able to bring myself to talk about her to anyone without my chest feeling tight. I wouldn't be saying this now to a bunch of internet strangers if I wasn't seeking help with this. She keeps pushing for us to try this and gets mad when I firmly tell her no. Then asks if it's that I don't think she's rapeable. It's her attempt to seduce me, which makes me even more uncomfortable and kind of sick. I haven't had it in me to tell her she's making me uncomfortable, because if I do I know I'll have to tell her why all this is bothering me, and I'd if I'm ready for talk about my sister to her. Right now she's taking it as I'm being too chicken to try something new in bed. I need help please.